Hi, it's T with TeaQuilts, and while I was making my wrist support, I decided that I would use some more of these scraps to make a cover for my Accuquilt Studio die cutter. Now, I saw Mom and Pop Quilt Shop make one, and I thought, oh, that's great. That reminds me that I need to make one for myself. So what I have is my Studio folded up. I have the Studio 1 that I converted to the Studio 2 by purchasing the arms so that I could take it and fold the arms up for storage. So now what I want to do is measure my width, my length, and my height. So I have my tape measure here, and I want to find the widest position. And up at the top, when both of my rails are put together, I have 11 inches. Down on the bottom, it looked like it kicks out a little bit. And I'd say that that measurement is 11 and a half. So I'm going to make the width of my machine cover 12 and a half. I'm just going to add an extra inch to all of my measurements. So now my height, it's sitting on my base, and so the height is it's about 14 3/4. So I will put, I'm just going to put 16 inches for that. An extra quarter won't hurt. Now I need the width, and it's tricky with the width because you also have to take in consideration that I have a handle here. I am not going to be taking this handle off. And then I have to also extend out to there's a base plate over here on the side. So it doesn't end right here. It actually comes out on the side. And I am going to have to eyeball where that stops. So I'm going to have to lean over a little bit. It looks like it stops about 25 1/4. So I am going to make this 26 1/4. Now these are the pieces that I'm going to be using. They're actually leftover pieces from when I did my Mariner quilt for my car. So I have my 3 pieces ready to go. And I think what I'm going to do is go and embroider TeaQuilts on the front panel. So I have to decide which one I want to use for the front. So I think I'll just put it right on this purple strip here. So I will do that and come back. So I'm back, and I decided to put TeaQuilts onto my panel, and it's crooked because number one, my panel is cut crooked, as you can see down here. And then I tried some metallic threads. I thought if this was the time to try it, now was the time. But I did have some difficulty on both of my tees, so I'm thinking it's got something to do with the digitizing. But I have my 2 side ends, and now I'm ready to sew these units together. So what I want to do is take my main piece in one side, and I want to put right sides together. And I'm going to use these clips just because they are easier to pull out. They're sturdier for the heaviness of the material. What I actually made my car quilt with was a piece of flannel on the back. So it's just regular quilted cottons with flannel on the back. And so I want to bring the same side, because this is going to go around. I want to bring this around to this side. And I'm just putting these clips in so I know approximately where I need to be when I start to turn the corner. Now when I sew these, I'm just going to gradually curve myself around the corner. So as I'm stitching, I'm going to start on one side, stitch down, and then I'm just going to curve my little self around the corners here as I stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and pin both of these units together. It's big enough that it shouldn't cause any major concerns. Alright, so that's what I have so far. I am going to take you to my sewing area. So I'm at my machine, and I am now going to sew my seams. And this is so big and bulky that I don't think you will need to use your free arm, so I am not going to do that. I'm probably going to stitch about a 3/8 of an inch seam, not quite a half, but a little bit over a quarter, so a generous quarter. And then at the bottom I do want to back stitch. And now I can take my clip there out. Okay, so now we want to start stitching. A little bit past a quarter. Because again, I am not going to line this bag. I am just stitching it. Since it's already quilted onto flannel, it already has some body, so that's all the, I didn't use any additional batting. So now I'm getting up to this corner. I want to keep it as flat as I can. And then when I get to the corner, I'm just going to slightly curve. I can release my presser foot. Take a few stitches. Get my edges together, and then continue on down the straight side. So I'm hoping that you can see some of the stitching. I know my hands are sort of in the way, but I have to be able to maneuver it. And my next corner is down here, so I'm okay right now. That clip out the corner, and now that I'm getting to the corner, I'm going to place the corner down and just curve around, and then I am going to ease in the fabric left from the corner. So I'll just take a couple stitches and raise my presser foot, take a couple more stitches, and now I can go ahead and sew around and go back down the straight side. And having the clips on it, even though they're not pinned exactly for positioning, at least my edges, when I get to the bottom, they will be even. And then when I get back to the bottom, I just want to do a few reverse stitches so that that's done. And I just want to look at it and make sure I'm okay with my seaming before I move on. So, looks pretty good. I can flip this side out, and it looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go to the other side. So now I have both of my pieces sewn. And I just want to check my seam on the outside, add some scrap binding. So I have a piece of scrap binding. Let me get my spindle so I can put the binding up here. Now the next step is to just install this binding. Back stitch a little bit. And even though this is circular, I'm just using regular binding strips that I saved from previous projects. Okay, so I now want to see where my binding is going to end over here. So I'm just going to temporarily put some pins in, and then I want to fold this back about 1.5 inches. And then I can just move this pin to reset it. And then I want to do the same thing right here, where I want to line up, pull back, so I fold it back, And I put a little crease with my fingernails on that so that I get a crease mark. And now I want to connect these two pieces. So I know where my crease mark is, and it's probably not going to show up on camera, but I've done a whole binding series. And now I just want to line up my folds and my crease marks. Just put a pin in here to hold it in place. And then I just want to stitch diagonally like I would when I'm connecting any other bias strip together for a regular quilt. So I'm actually putting this on like I would if I was making my quilt. I am just going to eyeball my line diagonally through. From corner to corner. Cut that. Get some scissors so I can trim this off. And then I will save those to sew to a half square triangle unit for the green, and then the yellow will be added back to a scrappy binding, what's left over. So that's how I keep things around here and have stuff already pre-made. So this binding was already sewn together, so I just have pieces laying around that I can chain piece with when I'm working on other projects. So now that I have the binding sewn together, I just make it, I pull it out so that I know it's all laying nice and flat, and then I just take a few pins now to hold it in place. So I don't have to worry about my binding moving. And now I can continue sewing the bob. I want to say bobbin so bad. Now I can continue sewing the binding down. And I do want to back stitch here, just in case I didn't start and stop in the same position. Yes, I'm stitching over pins. Excuse me. They're pretty fine. I only had 3, so I just left them there. And then I get to the end and I back stitch again. Now the next step, I will have to go to the iron to press this seam down and then around to the front, and then I will come back. I actually pressed my binding so that it would have a memory to hold, so I wouldn't have to worry about where I'm stitching. And I guess I do want to use an open toe foot if you have it. I don't know if I told you in a previous video, my open toe foot had a little plastic piece that was see-through, but it was still blinding as to where I was actually stitching, so I just took it off. And I am just going to continue to use white. I quilted this with white. Even though I got a multicolor binding, I'm still going to go ahead and just stitch this binding down with white. You can use a decorative stitch if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and use a plain old straight stitch. So I'm trying to sew accurately, as well as keep my hands out the way, but my hands will slide up with the binding that I'm holding. So here we come up to the end, and I will do some back stitching here and clip my thread tail from the beginning. And there we have it. Now the question is, does it work? Is it the correct size? But I'm back in my work area, and here is my cover, and I have not put it on the machine yet, so let's get the machine and see how it fits. I will slide this on the machine. See what we have here. Now, it's pretty big in the sides, and that's because I have the handle that sticks out that also needs to be covered. But that's pretty cool. I'm glad that I have it. My height, where I added an inch, I mean, I cut exact, so I don't know why it's fitting a little bigger than it should, but that's what it's doing. My sides should actually be right here, but with the arm off on the other side. You can't tell, but it's a nice little dust cover. It's not fitted exactly, but I'm okay with that. So this is what we have. So I'll take a few still shots and put this machine up. Just thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.